They said the Monster King took brides, the Waystorms took rooftops, without warning, without mercy, and never returning what he stole. So when Lady Elowen's wedding carriage rolled along the eastern road toward the borders of Vhalor, the escort rode in silence. Even the horses stepped carefully, as if the ground itself might notice them. Everyone knew the stories. King Sable, the vampire sovereign of the cold forests, watched the world with hunger. People swore he could hear a heartbeat from far away, and that those who met his gaze forgot their own names. Elowen tried to breathe through the tightness in her chest. The ivory dress and veil felt like costume more than celebration. This marriage to Lord Marek of Lask was not love, it was politics stitched into a bride's shape. She was being traded for roads and soldiers, for alliances meant to hold back fear. Yet as the carriage passed village after village, Elowen saw something that didn't fit the monster tales. A widow left a loaf of bread on a well-stone as if for an unseen traveler. A girl tucked dried herbs on a fence post near the tree line, then hurried away like she'd done something shameful. The people looked frightened, but not only frightened. They looked grateful. By dusk the cloud sank low and heavy. The last inn before the border was shuttered tight, its sign swinging, "No rooms." Beneath it, someone had scrawled, "Do not travel after dark." Marek's captain advised making camp. Torches were planted in a weak circle, and the men spoke in whispers without ever saying the king's name. Elowen sat near the fire with her maid, Tamsin, warming her hands around a cup she didn't drink. Tamsin leaned close and murmured the rumors, how looking into the vampire king's eyes could make you choose him, how the border was cursed. Elowen surprised herself by answering softly, maybe someone once wanted to stay, and the world called it a curse because it didn't understand. As night deepened, the camp's quiet changed. Not sleep quiet, watchful quiet, like animals sensing weather. Elowen stood and walked just beyond the firelight for a breath of air that belonged only to her. The forest seemed to exhale. She didn't hear footsteps. She only felt the presence, close, steady, patient. When she turned, a man stood at the edge of the trees. No crown. No armor. A dark cloak, pale skin, black hair, and eyes that were simply awake, deep and calm, not glowing with theatrics. "Lady Elowen," he said, as if her name were something gentle. Her throat tightened. "You know me." "I know the carriage," he replied. "And the ring." She forced the question out. "Are you?" He inclined his head. "They call me Sable." The title king didn't need to be spoken. The night itself seemed to recognize him. "I will not harm your escort," he said, "if they do not harm you." Elowen frowned despite her fear. "Harm me?" "They're here to protect me." Sable's gaze held hers. Sometimes the difference is only the word. She swallowed. "Why are you here?" His answer was quiet and strange. "To make sure you arrive alive." Before she could understand, a shout rose from the camp. Metal rang. Boots pounded. Elowen turned and saw a man burst from the firelight, running straight for her with a small knife made for silent work. One of Marek's men. Her body went cold. Sable moved, not dramatically, not with show, simply there, between them. He caught the assassin's wrist with a grip that looked almost gentle and plucked the blade away like it was nothing. He didn't strike. He didn't snarl. He leaned in and whispered something Elowen couldn't hear. Whatever it was, the assassin crumpled as if the strength had been pulled from his bones. He dropped to his knees and began to sob into his hands, shaking with sudden, miserable clarity. The captain and guards rushed up with raised swords, and froze when they saw Sable. There, a soldier hissed. "The monster!" Sable didn't look at them. He looked at Elowen, checking she still stood. "He was going to kill me," Elowen managed. The captain's face tightened. He looked like a man who had feared something he didn't want to name. Sable stepped back, giving space as if refusing to escalate their panic. "Take him," Sable said, nodding to the assassin. "Bind his hands. Let him live until morning. He will speak then." One guard spat, trembling, "Why would we listen to you?" Sable answered without heat. "Because if I wanted your lady dead, she would be. And you would not have heard her scream. It wasn't a threat. It was a plain truth, and it settled over the soldiers like cold water." The captain swallowed and ordered the man bound. When the assassin was dragged away, still weeping, Elowen faced Sable. Her hands shook now that the danger had passed. "You saved me," she whispered. "I returned a debt," Sable said. "What debt?" He hesitated, as if weighing how much of himself to reveal. "Years ago, your mother crossed my border in winter. She carried medicine for a village that would have frozen without it. My sentries wanted to turn her away. I let her pass." Elowen's breath caught. "She never told me." "She didn't know it was me," Sable said. She thanked the woods. She left a ribbon on a tree and said, "May whatever watches here stay gentle." Elowen blinked hard. The camp behind her buzzed with frightened voices, yet here, between firelight and forest, something felt strangely calm. "Elowen," Sable said, her name suddenly careful, "you are not safe with Lord Marek." "I don't belong to him yet," she said, lifting her chin. "Not in ink," Sable replied. "But in intent." His voice lowered. "He arranged this. He meant your death to be blamed on my border. A grieving fiancé, a convenient war." Elowen's stomach twisted. "War? He wants my forests burned," Sable said. "He wants a monster to justify his hunger." Elowen thought of Marek's polished smile and felt sick at how easily she had mistaken ambition for normal politics. "What do I do?" she asked. Sable looked at her for a long moment, as if restraining 1,000 sharper solutions. "Come with me," he said. Her pulse leapt. "To your castle?" "To Sanctuary," he corrected. "One night. Long enough for daylight to uncover the truth." "If I go," Elowen whispered, "they'll say you took me." "They will say that regardless," Sable answered, weary but not bitter. Fear is a story people prefer to the uncertainty of kindness. Elowen stared at him, this king without a crown, this monster who had disarmed a killer without killing him. "I don't want war," she said. "Neither do I," Sable replied. "That is why I will carry the blame." "Why?" Her voice broke. "Because I know what it is to be used as a tail," he said. "And because your mother once prayed for gentleness in my woods." Elowen forced herself to ask the question that mattered most. "If I come, will you compel me? Will you force anything from me?" His expression sharpened with principle. "No. You will have a door you can open. Rest without a hand at your throat. I will not touch you unless you ask. No one had ever offered her safety with so little claim attached. The captain called her name from the camp, panicked and pleading. Elowen looked once toward the firelight, then back to the trees. She lifted her veil back from her face, as if choosing to meet the world honestly. One night, she said. Sable bowed, as if accepting a sacred duty. He offered his arm, not like a captor, but like an escort. Elowen placed her hand lightly on his sleeve, and they walked into the forest. The path felt guided, not trapped. When roots rose, Sable slowed. When the wind turned cold, his cloak shifted to shelter her without enclosing her. Her fear didn't vanish, but it changed. It became curiosity, and something tender she didn't yet name. At last the trees thinned, and the castle appeared, dark stone, yes, but not cruel. Lanterns glowed warmly. The gates stood open. No soldiers rushed forward. Instead, an older woman in plain clothing waited with a quiet smile. "Welcome," she said. "I am Myra. Come inside, my lady. You must be chilled." Elowen blinked at the normal gentleness of it. Inside, the castle smelled of beeswax and herbs. A fire burned. A table held bread, fruit, and tea. Not horror. Not cages. Just warmth. Myra guided Elowen to a chair. "Eat. Then sleep. His Majesty will not disturb you." Elowen looked back at Sable, who lingered near the doorway like someone reluctant to step too far into kindness. "You won't join me?" she asked. "I do not eat what you eat," he said. "But I will be nearby." "Where?" He hesitated, then answered honestly. "Outside your door." That night, Elowen slept in clean linens with winter berries in a small vase beside the window. She woke once before dawn and listened. Outside the door, a faint shift of cloth. A stillness like a guard who didn't want to be thanked. He was there. Not looming over her. Not watching. Simply keeping his word. She pressed her palm to the wood. "Sable," she whispered. "Yes," came his quiet reply. "Do you ever get tired of being feared?" A long pause, then the careful truth. "I got tired long ago. Now I am used to it." "You don't have to be," she whispered. "Tell the world that," he murmured, not bitter, only tired in a way that made her chest ache. "What if I tried?" she asked. "You would be harmed," he said at once. "Maybe," Elowen admitted. "But I've been harmed already, just more politely." The silence warmed between them, like coals under ash. "Sleep," Sable said gently. "Morning will bring noise." When dawn came, it came softly, pale light on stone, the smell of fresh bread. In the hall, Marek's captain stood with Myra, shaken. "My lady," he said, "we found letters on the assassin. Sealed instructions. From Lord Marek. Payment promised. He meant to use your death to start a war and blame the king." Elowen's hands curled. "The assassin?" "He's awake now," the captain said, voice thick with disbelief. "He says he doesn't know why he agreed. Like he was pushed downhill. His Majesty spoke to him, and then he told everything." Elowen understood, Sable hadn't controlled the man. he'd done something gentler, stopped him without destroying him, and somehow returned him to himself. In the courtyard, Sable waited by the open gate, watching the forest as if listening to distant things. "They will leave," he said when Elowen approached. "And you?" she asked. "I will stay," he replied. "As I always do." "They'll say you took me," she said. "Yes." "They'll say you planned war." "Yes." "And you'll let them?" Sable's gaze was steady. "If the truth is spoken too loudly, it will be dismissed as a lie. If it is whispered, it may settle where it belongs." Elowen's throat tightened. "So you'll be hated so others can be safe." "It is easier," Sable said softly, "for them to fear one monster than to admit their own lords can be cruel." She stepped closer, seeing the faint shadows under his eyes. "What do you want, Sable?" For a heartbeat his composure thinned, revealing something human and unguarded. "I want the border quiet," he said. "Children sleeping without drums. Woods unburned. Your people and mine to stop feeding each other stories." "And for yourself?" she asked. A pause. Then honesty, plain as winter air. "For someone to remember that I once chose not to become what they named me." Elowen reached into her sleeve and drew out a thin pale blue ribbon, torn from the edge of her wedding sash, something unclaimed, something that still belonged to her. She held it out. Sable took it carefully, as if it mattered. "What is this?" he asked. "A thank you," Elowen said. "Not for saving my life. For saving it without making me a prisoner. My mother left a ribbon in your woods," she added, voice trembling. "Now I understand why." She believed in something she couldn't prove, Sable murmured. "I believe now," Elowen said. The captain approached at a respectful distance. "My lady, we're ready. We'll return to Breinholt and bring these letters to the council. Marek will answer for this." Elowen nodded, then looked back at Sable. "If I speak well of you, they'll say I'm enchanted." "They will," Sable said. "But I can still do something," Elowen replied. "I can refuse to let them use you as their excuse. I can tell the truth of Marek's plot. I can insist the border stays peaceful." Something eased in Sable's posture, subtle but real. "That is more than most," he said. Elowen stepped close and touched his arm, briefly, respectfully. A simple human acknowledgement. "Thank you," she whispered. Sable bowed his head. "Go safely, Elowen." As she left, she glanced back once. Sable walked to a pine near the gate and tied the pale blue ribbon to a low branch. It fluttered in the morning breeze, small, bright gentleness against dark bark. Elowen rode away with her escort, and the men spoke little. They looked shaken, not by terror, but by the quiet discovery that the monster of their stories had acted with more honor than the lord they served. Weeks later, in bright halls under bright banners, Elowen presented Marek's letters. She didn't try to shatter fear with one speech. She simply refused to let a lie become a war. She demanded peace at the border and trade instead of marching drums. Some listened. Some sneered. Many whispered she'd been bewitched. But war did not come. And along the border, strange gentle things continued to happen. A lost child was found asleep under a tree at dawn, wrapped in an unfamiliar cloak. Wolves that had stalked shepherds were quietly driven back into the deeper wild. When winter fever struck a riverside hamlet, bundles of rare herbs appeared on doorsteps in the night, enough to keep the sick breathing until spring. People still said the Monster King watched them. They were not wrong. Yet slowly, beneath the dread, another understanding took root. Sometimes being watched meant being guarded. On the first snow, Elowen returned alone to the edge of Vhalor's trees. No banners. No soldiers. She tied a small ribbon to a branch and stood in the hush for one quiet moment. She did not see Sable. She did not need to. The wind shifted, gentle and cold, and the ribbon fluttered as if touched by an unseen hand. Elowen smiled through the sting of tears and turned back toward the village lights. Behind her, in the woods everyone feared, the Monster King remained what he had always been, a shadow that did not strike, a darkness that sheltered, and a sovereign whose greatest power was the choice to be kind when no one would believe it. And in time, without fanfare, the world began to realize that true kindness can live behind fear, sometimes quietly enough that it looks like a curse, until someone dares to listen closely.